Hello everyone, this is Crota giving you a shoutcast in Game 2 in a series between oGs's J versus IM's MVP here on Metalopolis. We see J spawning as the red Zerg at the 3 o'clock position. Meanwhile, MVP spawning as the blue Terran here at the 9 o'clock position. This will be a full cross spawn, which is exactly what J wants to see on a map like this. So yeah, we'll see what will be happening here in just a moment. You can now see the hatchery being built over here, and now the Overlord just slowly making its way across the map. Not being built, just spawning here. Yeah, a little bit of a slip up. Anyways, the Overlord will be making its way out, scouting this position here, perhaps not seeing anything on the front door, and then continuing to move down here. IM MVP most likely will be getting up a barracks, and based upon the locations of this map, I'm expecting to see that IM MVP will be opening up with a barracks and a refinery, just because it is a much more common tactic to try to get some early tech. We'll see if we have any early Hellion pressure, and we'll see how this game goes. In Game 1 was much more macro intensive, a lot of Marine tank, medevac, a very, very standard play from Terran in order to deal with roaches, banelings, and mutalisks. It's all about how you're able to utilize positioning, and MVP doing a great job utilizing positioning. As we can now see, the refinery is being built as well. A drone will be moving out as well. As you can see, a barracks currently being built here. It looks like this one particular drone will be coming up that ramp, as we also see Jay now setting up a hatchery. This Overlord, curiously enough, moving back. So a lot of the times I see Overlords hiding off and positioning themselves right over here in order to be able to suicide and see when that exact hatchery or that command center will be built. It doesn't look like that will be the case this time, as a drone was trying to be able to sneak back out and it was not able to, and now that drone needs to be very, very careful attempting to run away. And wow, this is a very old version of Metalopolis. As you can see that there is not additional vents down over here. This is not the official BattleNet version, and this is also not the MLG version, so I am curious as to whether or not you can even have ally spawns on this map. It doesn't look like you can, as you now see the SCV moving across the map in order to do some scouting. A drone will quickly, the drone trying to run away from that Marine. The drone perhaps trying to hide off over here. It looks like it will simply just get taken down by the SCV. And now we'll see what will be and what will follow this up. We are perhaps going to get a reactor here in just a moment by MVP. Meanwhile, we are getting a spawning pool and that extractor up. So Jay opening up with a very similar build as to what he had last time. And perhaps this map not being crossfire and not as Terran friendly, he will be able to squeeze out a victory. As you can now see, the reactor is currently being built by MVP. In typical fashion, Jay now opening up or countering with that Roach Ward, perhaps expecting some early Hellion pressure. And if last game is any indication, and based upon the timing of this command center, I'm assuming that we will be seeing 2 Hellions trained and then swap back around in order to train up some siege tanks and some Marines as well into the standard Marine tank. And SCV now attempting to run away. It looks like it will get shut down rather quickly. No, the Zerglings are not chasing the SCV, so that SCV will be able to return home and mine more minerals. It looks like the Marines are looking and hunting for some Overlords. It doesn't look like any Overlords will get hunted down, as they are all on the high ground and in a very, very easy position in order to move away from those 2 in particular Marines just wandering back and forth. We can see that the Hellions are now trained. Are we going to perhaps have a liftoff in just a moment? No, we are not going to have a liftoff. Oh, he lifted off even though he started researching Stim. Not quite sure what that was about. Perhaps he's changing up his build order just a little bit, or he's going to go back to that same build order that I mentioned earlier, now going into siege tanks and training up Marines. He's only running off of 1 gas, so he cannot train up to a siege tank every time, as siege tanks do take a fair amount of gas in order to build up, as now the Hellions backing off once more, knowing that not much economic damage will be done at all. You can see that the Queens are sitting over here as well. Queens perhaps going to lay down some creep tumors, and now we are going into that evolution chamber. So evolution chamber coming in a little bit earlier this time around than opposed to last time, as the Hellions are trying to play a very, very dangerous game of chicken against those Queens. Those Queens do move fairly fast on creep, and especially with those roaches offering some support. I do not believe that the Hellions will be able to do very much at all. The Hellions do have a fair amount of map control, though, activating each of these Onaga watchtowers. A Roach now scampering his way towards this Hellion. It looks like the Roach may be able to win this battle, and the Roach unable to get off enough shots in order to back off or destroy any of those Hellions, as we now see some Marines and tanks making their way out, as I am MVP also setting up an orbital command and will be able to call over some mules and also train up more and more SCVs. Taking a look at the harvester count, 43 drones versus 27 SCVs, so things are not looking all too good, but I am MVP also expanding in a very early fashion here. So expanding very, very early, and we'll see how much damage or how defensive he's going to be. You don't really want to attack and, well, I guess you can attack and expand at the same time if you're able to as long as you're able to get a lot of utilization and force your opponent to be much more defensive. The siege tanks are now once again on the move. You can see that there's a Marine activating this Onaga watchtower. The Marines are now simply going to make their way up. This siege tank or this Roach are going to get destroyed rather quickly, as the creep tumors are also going to get shut down. A scanner sweep now revealing some of those creep tumors, but I do not believe that those creep tumors are going to really be able to really get destroyed at all, as we are now going into some banelings. Those banelings very important in order to shut down those early Marines. The command center nearly completed already, about 20 more seconds. Already having a head start on oGs's hatchery here at the high ground expansion location. 3 tanks, a lot of Marines, and 4 tanks now, as we are now ramping up production. We'll see what MVP does in just a moment. We are going to be perhaps in a very defensive posture, as the Zerglings do scout out this expansion. The Zergling now just trying to poke away at this command center. It doesn't look like it will stick around for very, very long. One siege tank now sieging up. Another siege tank is going to siege up, as well as mules also being transferred. That's got to have been a mistake by I am MVP, as the Hellions are now trying to run away from those Zerglings. It looks like they may be successful, as the Zerglings are getting in a fair amount of damage, constantly poking, and now finally turning around, getting some damage back onto those Zerglings there. Double engineering bay, indicating that we may be getting, the Hellions coming back and now just getting destroyed. But double engineering bay indicating that we are going to be going into a very, very heavy infantry production, as we are adding on a tech lab and also getting another barracks as well. The Marines do not have stim pack. The Marines do not have combat shield. So it will be quite some time before these Marines really move into combat, as now level 1 weapons upgrade and level 1 armor upgrade happening as well. Another hatchery also being placed down by Jay. Jay realizing that he cannot fall behind in hatchery, and wow, we are really in a very heavy macro game. 70 food and 110 overall, 71 drones, 109 overall, compared to 96, with 52 of those also being harvesters. And there were some mules, so those mules are giving a very, very strong economy to MVP right now, as some supply depots now being built. We can see that MVP currently supply blocked, unable to really train up anything on many of his production buildings there. They are all queued up, as well as the level 1 weapons upgrade and armor upgrades will be completed momentarily. Also the armory being added in order to start those level 2 upgrades in addition. Jay now moving out with these overlords in order to make sure that no drops will be coming in at all. This is going to become an east versus west or north versus south battle, depending on how you look at the minimap. And both players just sitting inside their bases, macroing up, trying to make sure that they don't make a mistake and have a large enough army. Now, in order for you to really turn into a macro game like this, Jay needs to be on top of his spawn larva. He needs to make sure that he doesn't miss spawn larvas, so that during the battle after his units are destroyed, he's able to replace them rather quickly. Meanwhile, the Terran player, what he needs to do is he needs to make sure that he continues to macro while the battle is in play. It is much easier to train units while in battle than as opposed to spawning larvae in battle, as spawning larvae in battle is rather difficult. And now you can see a flock of mutalisks are in the air, both sides with very large armies, but a significantly larger army by Jay in terms of gas. 600 more resources, also significantly higher in drones, 84 drones versus 67 SCVs. Now, it looks like those Mutalisks are looking to push in here. There is one missile turret, and the missile turret is not going to be able to absorb that much damage, or not taking or dealing any damage at all. It looks finally like those Marines are going to be making their way back in, but the Mutalisks finishing off the rest of those Marines, taking down Marine after Marine. The superior numbers really helping out Jay as more Marines finally come over. 1-1 upgrades on those units as Overlords are now hiding off over here. Gonna be a matter of time before this expansion is set up as well, as these mineral patches are starting to run low down to the 400-300 range, and now we are going into an infestation pit, perhaps for tier 3, but more likely just for infestors, as infestors are so critical in Zerg versus Terran. Another command center being built as well. It looks like there will be a planetary fortress established here in just a moment, and there is that hatchery as I mentioned earlier. 5 bases to 3, or it will be 5 bases to 4 in just a moment, as these Marines are once again on the move. 2-2 upgrades, combat shield, and vehicle weapons upgrade now making their way in. The Zerglings do not have Carapace upgrade, and it will not matter even if they get that Carapace upgrade, as the siege tanks will still be able to one-shot them, as the siege tanks are getting that level 1 weapons upgrade. Very important, as well as the Zerglings and the Banelings have to be careful about what will be happening. A Marine now trying to walk over, gonna simply just get shut down there. Down it goes. Another Marine now coming in, getting shut down as well. So 2 freebie Marines. As missile turrets are now being built, Jay does spot this, and he also sees the missile turrets coming in. So I am very curious as to what MVP is trying to do in this situation. Both players banking a lot of minerals and gas as well. We will soon be supply blocked here, as the Mutalisks are now moving in, gonna shut down another missile turret getting taken down, and now we see that Jay is sitting at 198 over 200 food. Now, one of the benefits of Zerg is that Zerg can build a bunch of spine crawlers and evolution chambers right before a battle, or right before queuing up some units, freeing up some food, and then cancel in order to get that food back. We did see that tactic with Sen a couple weeks ago in the finals of my Clan Wars, as we are also going into a Nidus network. So this Nidus network going to be very critical, as MVP, I believe, was able to shut down a couple of scouting overlords there, and an infestor also being added. Level 2 weapons upgrades, level 2 Zerg Carapace, as well as the siege tanks now in the center portion of the map. Roaches now trying to push their way in, just simply getting destroyed, as we are now finally going into a Greater Spire. And the Greater Spire is going to be a bit of an issue, as we are now going into a Nidus Worm down over here. MVP does not spot this. This is going to be a huge vulnerability, as there are a decent number of units in that Nidus network now. They may be coming funneling out. Zerglings will be pouring in, dealing damage against those missile turrets, and as soon as those missile turrets are down, the Mutalisks will be able to flock by and get in a lot more damage as well. The Zerglings are now simply running in. The Marines are now funneling in as well, but I believe this Nidus Worm will get taken down. Not quite sure why it isn't, in fact, as the Marines could just be able to easily finish this off down over here. Yeah, down it goes. That Nidus network did not deal as much damage as I would have liked to have seen. Now, we also need to see Jay get a lot more gas. We can see it sitting on 6,000 or 5,500 minerals and 1,300 gas. He will be able to get a lot more corruptors, and it is very important for Zerg to go into that Greater Spire, as Broodlords cost very little on food, but also deal a lot more damage, and we're going to see that in just a moment. As you can see, the medevac getting absolutely destroyed, and the drops are pretty much going to be shut down now, as the Mutalisks will be able to shut down many of those units. And now you can see that we are getting some siege tanks starting to blast away. The corruptors need to morph into Broodlords, and rather quickly, as you can now see a lot of spine crawlers being built here. Those are just all going to get absolutely shelled and destroyed, as we are now getting the crackling upgrade of fungal growth now coming in, as the Marines and Zerglings are now just trying to pour their way in as well. All these spine crawlers going to get destroyed very easily. And now perhaps should just cancel in order to free up some more food there. Where are those corruptors? As the medevac now simply going to drop in very easily as well. The Greater Spire looks to get destroyed. We do have 5 Broodlords now trying to morph in, but it may not be enough. The Greater Spire looks like it will get shut down in just a moment. Yeah, the Greater Spire easily destroyed. The Zerglings are now trying to swarm in. The Banelings may be able to splash in, and saving the Greater Spire at 200 hit points, as we are now melting the rest of those Marines, and now this may be a problem as we should be getting a counterattack in just a moment. You can see that the Marines are going to be able to finally shut down that Greater Spire. There are a lot of Mutalisks in the air spread about, and now the Mutalisks are going to be, the Broodlords are now going to start hammering into this position here. The Thors are going to have a very difficult time. The Mutalisks now getting after those Marines, so 5 Broodlords may be enough to shut down all of these units here as the production tab finally shows some Vikings. The Thor is unable to really counter this at all, and now the standing army of the Zerg is much, much larger. We still see 71 drones versus 64 drones now being transferred over here to the south side, and it is going to be some time. There are a decent number of Vikings in the air, but there are also, very importantly, a lot of Mutalisks, and those Mutalisks normally would not be able to counter all of those Vikings, but because of those Broodlords and them being the much more high priority target, it may work out well. Infestors now just scampering about. Marines cleaning up some of these creep tumors down over here. The Spire now being rebuilt. Zerglings are now going to be swarming into this position. The Queen joining in on the fight as the Marines now getting eaten apart by those Zerglings. Army compositions much larger by Zerg. He is still banking a lot of minerals. Both players supply blocked or limited on supply now, as we are now going to see the Broodlords starting to swarm in just a moment. There are not that many missile turrets here, as now the Broodlords are just going to be swarming in just a moment. Those are those Infestors that we mentioned. The Infestors getting in a fungal growth after fungal growth, and now the Mutalisks now swarming in as well. Down it goes, and very, very nicely done. It looks like the Broodlords are going to be able to break this composition rather quickly, as now the Mutalisks are finally coming in. Is it going to be enough? The Infestor needs to get off another fungal growth. It looks like it will be able to. No, fungal growth hitting off a lot of those Marines, as the Broodlords are now finally shut down. Are we going to get enough fungal growths? That is the key question there. I don't believe so. MVP now sitting on a lot of resources, but same thing on both sides, as well as the Corruptors are once again being retrained. Corruptors being added, Burrow now coming into play, 5 command centers being built. What is going on? I cannot imagine why 5 command centers need to be rebuilt at this time. Perhaps we will see planetary fortresses here and here to limit the amount of walkways, as planetary fortresses are very difficult to deal with by Zerg, especially with the Viking support. The siege tanks now rolling in, and I believe that MVP has now broken through the Zerg opportunity. The Zerg, what Jay did have a very, very large army for just a moment, and now things are not looking very good at all for Jay. Jay is trying to ramp up his production, going into Ultralisk as well, getting a lot more Infestors. 7 Infestors with fungal growth. Marines are now going to be pushing in as well, as it looks like this one Spine Crawler will get taken down. The Queen now engaging. The Queen quickly going to get destroyed, as the drones now getting destroyed over here. The Mutalisks not going to be able to engage, but there are a couple freebie siege tanks as well, as the Thors are now going to be able to get easy damage, as those Mutalisks were swarming just a little bit too closely together. And now MVP just attacking where Jay is not. You can see a couple of Zerglings preventing the landing of this command center. Another hatchery over here as well. The Thors are in position. Siege tanks are offering a lot of cover support, as a drone unable to make its way back up onto that high ground. Army compositions, the Broodlords once again engaging, and this is going to become a very, very nasty surprise, as those Thors are not going to be able to engage, and now the Mutalisks coming in as well. Down goes more units. The Infestors may be able to get off some fungal growths onto those Marines. Yes, there's that one fungal growth. One more should be enough to take down many more of those Marines. Not quite sure. The Broodlords are just going to engage, picking apart many of those units once more, and the Vikings are now trying to push back in. Where are those Infestors? Those Infestors need to offer some protection. They are not doing their job at all, and Jay is in a bit of trouble, just losing Infestor, or sorry, not only those Infestors, but those Broodlords. After Broodlords, down goes another one of those Vikings, as natural regeneration for the win on this Mutalisks. Army compositions: 2,900, 2,200 gas versus 4,250, 1,450, 49 SCVs versus 66 drones. A lot of siege tanks, a lot more units will need to be swarming in, as the Zerglings are now trying to push in, and it looks like they will be able to take down perhaps this one command center before it upgrades to a planetary fortress. The Zerglings now trying to back off once again. More siege tanks and Marines coming back in, gonna try to re-engage. Where are those infestors? The infestors are nowhere to be found. There they are, a decent number of infestors, 8 of them, and with a couple well-placed fungal growths or those broodlords, it may be enough. There is one corruptor now trying to back off here. The Marines may simply just stim in and shut this down. The Zerglings perhaps do not know about that command center there, as a one Marine taking down this command center, or that hatchery. This hatchery by Jay will get destroyed rather quickly. Drones are now doing some more long distance mining. A little bit of that stutter step onto those drones, shutting them all down. A queen now going to engage. No transfusion just quite yet to save that one. There it is. There's the double transfusion to save that one spine crawler and make sure that it is able to fight even further. As now Broodlords once again being reintroduced to the army, and I am MVP. Perhaps knowing that those Broodlords are coming, deciding to back off and making sure that he has enough Vikings to engage. The Broodlings will come out, swarming those Marines. The Marines taking a lot of damage there, but really not enough. As those Marines are now taken down, we still have 5 Broodlords in the air. Those Broodlings, I believe, are upgraded 3-3. Yes, those Broodlings are upgraded 3-3 as well, and will be able to deal a lot of damage. You can see that there is one planetary fortress here. It has absolutely no value whatsoever, as another orbital command will be landing off over here in just a moment. Both sides sitting on very large armies, but 128 food versus 170, 37 SCVs versus 39 drones. But those infestors, and it's really going to come down to who can micro their armies better. Both of them are very, very fragile, but both of them have a lot of damage potential. Infestors gonna try to channel against those Thors. We do not see Neuroparasite at all. The Broodlords simply moving out once more. The Infestors are not going to be able to get that much damage in. The Siege Tanks will get taken down in just a moment. Down it goes. And now here we go. Vikings are engaging. And now there's one fungal growth. The Broodlords are a little bit too close. They need to back off. Not much is going to be happening here. Spine crawlers, or sorry, Infestors now just once again fungal growthing, as getting a lot more damage in, and Jay really attacking a fortified Terran position, even though he traded, did not get very much out of that trade there. The production tab pretty much shows that this will be a GG coming in from Jay. Long distance mining on those drones. Zerglings now trying to take down this medevac, or the contents of that medevac will not be able to do so, as the Zerglings are just constantly chasing back and forth. There is a queen now nearby. Perhaps we'll be able to get some no acid spines into that one medevac there. Overlords hiding off over here as well, as we are now finally going into a desperation Ultralisk. Ultralisk are going to be able to deal a lot of damage. A queen now getting taken down. And now you can see that the Ultralisk will be able to clean up perhaps some of these Marines rather quickly. The spawning pool now getting taken down as well. Broodlings now coming in, swarming in against those units. Zerglings now trying to pick off more of that as the Siege Tanks roll on in. The army of I am MVP almost triple in size. Or actually, no, 6 times in size now, as there's the GG coming in. Jay realizing that he doesn't have enough. Stay tuned for Game 3 in this series between I am MVP versus, Jay. Yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.